This podcast may contain explicit language. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. The Usual Suspects is next. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, the show that uses a unique grading style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
And I'm Dana Duncan.
And we are alone this evening.
Or am I Keyser Söze?
Keyser Söze? You mean Keyser Söze?
Keyser, excuse me. Or am I Keyser Söze?
Sure. After the mispronunciation, I think people would think you're more verbal Kint than Keyser Söze, but that's another matter.
Well,
don't worry. Every apparently man of a certain age has trouble with pronunciation of names after a certain point. So you're just par for the course.
Yeah.
Age comes for us all. Eventually, it'll be my turn.
Yeah, well, you seem to be aging a lot faster than I did.
That is true. But that's also because I take less care of myself.
That is true.
I don't think there's any debate on that one. But anyway, tonight for our 273rd episode, we find out if the devil actually does exist with The Usual Suspects from 1995, celebrating its 30th anniversary. Directed by Bryan Singer, written by Christopher McQuarrie, cinematography by Newton Thomas Sigel, music and editing by John Ottman. You don't often get those two combined. Starring Kevin Spacey as Roger Verbal Kint, Gabriel Byrne as Dean Keaton, Chazz Palminteri as Agent Dave Kuyan, Stephen Baldwin as Michael McManus, Benicio del Toro as Fred Finster, Kevin Pollack as Todd Hockney, Pete Postlethwaite as Kobayashi, Susie Ami as Edie Finneran, Giancarlo Esposito as FBI agent Jack Baer, and Dan Hedaya as Sergeant Jeff Rabin. Background for the movie: The Usual Suspects was released on August 16th, 1995. On a budget of $6 million, the film would gross $23 million to finish as the number 75 film at the 1995 worldwide box office. While most critics enjoyed the film, those who didn't were quite loud, including Roger Ebert in their dislike for the film. I think he is notable that this is like one of the few movies that is widely accepted as a good movie that he just loathed. Nevertheless, the film won both of the Oscars it was nominated for, Best Supporting Actor for Kevin Spacey and Original Screenplay for Christopher McQuarrie. In 2008, the AFI revealed its 10 top 10, and The Usual Suspects was acknowledged as the 10th best mystery film. Verbal Kint was voted the number 48 villain in their 100 Years, 100 Heroes and Villains in June 2003. Entertainment Weekly cited the film as one of the 13 must-see heist movies. Empire ranked Keyser Söze number 69 in their 100 Greatest Movie Characters poll. In August 2016, James Charisma of Paste ranked The Usual Suspects among Kevin Spacey's greatest film performances. Given that it's one of his 2 Oscar wins, that doesn't seem like all that much of a stretch, but okay, sure. In 2013, the Writers Guild of America ranked the screenplay number 35 on its list of the 101 greatest screenplays ever written, and The Usual Suspects currently holds a 87% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, a 76 score on Metacritic, and a 4.1 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So as we begin usually each week, what is your relationship to this movie, Dad?
I didn't see it in the theater. I did not hear about it initially, and somebody told me to watch it, and I kind of had an idea what was going on, but I think it was at least 5 years, 6 years after it was out before I got around to watching it.
I think I only watched this maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. It was a movie that I know had been very famous by the time that I saw it, among especially people who like movies. And I knew that there was some sort of twist ending to it, but I didn't know what the twist was. Even so, I wasn't blown away by the twist in the way that I'm sure everybody else was in the 90s when it seemed like there were 2 or 3 of these a year that were just built into the word of mouth factory about going to see a particular movie. There was this, The Crying Game, The Sixth Sense. There were plenty of different movies that had a significant plot device in it that was going to surprise people. And then everybody would tell you, go see this movie because it's got this significant ending to it. For me, that just, it never panned out. I thought, okay, I understand it, I guess, but it's not the aha moment I'm sure that everybody else did. And that's why I don't think that this film has stayed with me as much. I think it's a fine film, it's an enjoyable film, but it's not one that I feel like is a favorite or that I really need to return to often. It feels somewhat simple and I guess not quite as clever as some of the other great plot devices or twists that I've seen otherwise. I think there are much better plot devices such as like The Prestige. I think we're discussing that one next year. And I think that has a much better finale point to it. When we get to Memento next year, I think that one, it has a pretty interesting ending to it. I don't know if you've seen that yet.
No.
But yeah, so those are a couple of other ones being in the Christopher Nolan wheelhouse, but those come out of an era in the 90s where this seemed to be much more commonplace. So what is the movie actually about?
The extent that criminals will go to cover their tracks.
Well, I'm going to save some of that for remaining questions, but I would also put in there, and to quote one of my 3 favorite films of all time, there's nobody more full of shit than a cop, except a cop on TV. Hubris comes for us all. And if you think you're smarter and you can get what you want from a suspect at all times, don't judge a book by its cover. Because his comeuppance at the end of the film, I think, is oddly enough, given that Keyser Söze is allegedly the devil and he kills all the people we're technically rooting for in this film, we definitely see Agent Kuyan as being like the bad guy in this movie.
Yep. I think he was, and I think the casting was perfect. I know they waited a while for him. They had offered the role to a couple of other actors, including Al Pacino, but his casting, I think, was appropriate. Is a just mix of being a hard ass and right on the edge of being, ethical as far as methods of interrogation.
I don't mean to say that Chazz Palminteri is typecast, but there's a reason he played a lot of mobsters where he's presenting an overly aggressive outward presence on screen. I think that works in this particular character where you need somebody who's brash and abrasive and looks like they have command of a certain situation but can easily be had. And I think that's portrayed in a lot of his other characters that I've seen on screen, most notably, at least for me, going back to something we watched when I was 9, Analyze This, where I think he's the rival mobster. But he's always had this air of, I'm in control and I'm a bully, but I'm also stupid. So that works really well here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm not going to go into any more detail than that because I think you covered it. It would just be piling on at this point. But yes, I mean, there's just certain actors that play parts better than others. They just have a talent. I mean, are you going to ever see Greg Kinnear as a mobster?
No, but I can definitely, like, Greg Kinnear to me always feels like somebody who's a little bit of a stuffed shirt. He reminds me a lot of his character from You've Got Mail. Like, that might be the most perfect Greg Kinnear casting of all time. He's a overly self-involved journalist or opinion columnist.
I mean, there's just certain ways or certain talents actors have that they can portray a character better when there's certain personality quirks or leanings than others. That's why casting really is, or should be an Academy Award.
Will be as of this year? Next year? It's one of the two. It's either this coming year or the following year.
I think it's a crying shame that it hasn't been already, because I think casting has a huge role in movie making.
Agreed. I have absolutely no complaints there, and frankly, I think it's well overdue as well. The difference is that most of the awards have been pieced out over time based on the strength of their guild or their union, and I just don't think that the casting union, if there is one, has a lot of strength to it.
Yes, the casting union.
Well, I mean, you look at it, every other guild has, like, there's the editors guild, there's the cinematographers guild, there's the directors guild, the actors or the screen actors guild, or if you're a fan of Team America World Police, the film actors guild.
Careful.
I suppose this is not the movie to be talking about that about. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on. Moving very far on. Okay. I won't cut that, but yeah, we're playing with fire here. Okay. Dad, do you like this movie?
Yes, I like it. Is it one of my top movies? No. It's okay. It's a little hard to follow at times, as far as I'm concerned. Really,
I don't know if I had that issue with it. I feel it's laid out pretty well.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you got to pay attention through the entire thing. I mean, you have to pay pretty close attention to it, because if you look away or daydream for a minute, you kind of lose track of things very quickly, and then you kind of have to spend the next 4 or 5 minutes trying to get back in the middle of it. So
I see. So this is a particular issue for the person who watches every movie with their phone in their hand.
Well, a lot of times I'm sitting there reading about the film, or I'm looking up one of the actors or whatever, because I'm building my inventory of comments for the show.
But yes, you can't hold the attention long enough to follow the entire plot of a, what is this, 110-minute movie? I don't think it's quite 2 hours.
I think you're about right.
Okay. So where does this rank among all-time movie twists? We've mentioned a few here. The Crying Game is up there. The Sixth Sense is up there as being two that are on the top. I will say, currently the list on IMDb has this as the number one twist of all time, followed by Old Boy and A Perfect Getaway. Now, I have not seen Old Boy. I don't even know what A Perfect Getaway is. Apparently, it's got Mia Jovovich, Steve Zahn, and Timothy Olyphant. It's a David Twohy film, but okay. Some of the other ones that I mentioned, I have not seen Shutter Island yet, but apparently that's got a twist ending. American Psycho, which I don't even find that to be necessarily a twist ending, but Memento is at 11. The Game is at 16. A History of Violence at 17. The Prestige at 20. And Fight Club at 21. But where for you is this among the great movie twists?
Boy, it's probably up near the top of the list you provided. Yes, I'd have to say it's probably near the top. I don't know about number one. I actually think that the Prestige had a little bit better twist. And I'm trying to remember the name of the film with Glenn Close playing the lawyer.
The Lawyer.
What was the name of that film?
Okay, I have no idea any movie where she's been a lawyer.
Just hold on a second.
Well, while we're waiting on you to do this during the middle of an audio medium, I guess we are somewhat on video. A couple of other ones. I'm looking at the Hollywood Reporter's list. Arrival is at number 3. Atonement is at number 4. Coco at number 4 or 5. Chinatown, which we've discussed. I guess that makes a little bit of sense. What twist ending is at the end of Citizen Kane?
What is Rosebud?
That's not much of a twist to me, but okay.
That's what it is.
Get Out? Okay, yeah, I guess that has a good twist to it. Gone Girl. Yep. That's probably up there on that list for me. Does The Matrix really have a twist? I don't know. That one seems a little suspect to me. They also have Memento and Old Boy. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I'm not sure that also has a twist to it. So some of these are a little bit odd to me. Parasite.
Yes, The Jagged Edge.
Oh, okay.
With Jeff Bridges.
That's a joke only you and I know.
I know. So it was an inside joke. Sorry, audience.
Now, if you mention that in 2 weeks when she's on the show.
Yeah, okay.
But you put this in what? The second tier? It's more famous than what it actually, like, the payoff isn't as good for us, either of us, as some of the other ones we've mentioned?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the surprise endings was The Prestige to me. Maybe this would be higher for me if I didn't kind of already have some inkling as to what was going to happen.
I suppose. All right. Do you have a plot summary ready for us?
I do. The Usual Suspects is a crime thriller about 5 criminals who meet during a police lineup and decide to work together on a heist. After the heist goes wrong, they find themselves being manipulated by a mysterious and dangerous crime boss named Keyser Söze. As the story unfolds, one of the criminals, Verbal Kint, tells the police what happened. Through flashbacks, we learn about betrayal, revenge, and the power of fear. The movie builds to a shocking twist at the end where everything we thought we knew is turned upside down. It's a smart, suspenseful film that keeps viewers guessing until the very last scene.
I would say thank you, but do you really have to read Keyser Söze like a Simpsons character?
Keyser Söze.
You sound like the Budweiser frogs from the 90s. Wasabi. Okay, anyway, did you know? The idea for this movie started only with the concept of a movie poster of 5 men in a lineup. Yes, a lot of great movies started with thinking about the movie poster first.
Yes.
Did you know? Christopher McQuarrie's inspiration for the character of Keyser Söze was a real-life murderer by the name of John List, who murdered his family and then disappeared for 17 years.
Wasn't that the guy that was the basis for a podcast?
I have no idea. I'm sure there's a true crime out there.
I think he was one of the first true crime podcasts, was the investigation trying to find him.
Okay. No idea. I don't really care for true crime, so. Did you know? All of the characters' names stem from the staff members of the law firm and the detective agency that Christopher McQuarrie worked for when he was young. Originally, Keyser Söze was supposed to have the name Keyser Söze, named after Christopher McQuarrie's old boss. He allowed his old boss to read the script, who did not want to be associated with an inherently evil villain, so requested a change be made.
Some lawyers would find that advantageous.
Definitely a unique name. Did you know? Kevin Spacey had been so impressed with Bryan Singer's first film, Public Access from 1993, that he told him he wanted to be in his next film when he met the young director after a screening at the 1993 Sundance Film Festival. Thus why this pairing must have been made. Did you know? In the making of documentary, both Stephen Baldwin and Kevin Pollack acknowledged that their long-standing feud began on the set of this film. Though neither actor directly states what caused their animosity towards each other, Pollack does mention that Baldwin, in an attempt to stay in character as McManus, would go around acting tough and sometimes bully the other actors. Baldwin does admit that he was bullying towards Pollack on the film. There are numerous standoff confrontations with each other on screen. Yet another example of somebody taking the whole method acting a little too far. Anyway, did you know? Bryan Singer described the film as Double Indemnity meets Rashomon, and said that it was made so you can go back and see all sorts of things you didn't realize were there the first time. You can get it a second time in a way that you never could have the first time around. He also compared the film's structure to Citizen Kane, which also contained an interrogator and a subject who is telling a story, and the criminal caper, The Anderson Tapes from 1971. I think that might be a little overinflated. Let's just throw out three of the best films of all time as what we're trying to build our movie into, and that's the basis. Okay, so the next time that I'm talking about my own movie and trying to promote it, let's just throw out, I don't know, Taxi Driver, Gone with the Wind, and Lawrence of Arabia. I think somebody is a little too self-important.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been, Wizard of Oz, Cinderella, as long as they were going along fantasy.
Okay. And finally, did you know? In December 2017, amid a flood of sexual misconduct allegations against Kevin Spacey, Gabriel Byrne said that at one point during shooting, production was shut down for 2 days because Spacey made unwanted sexual advances toward a younger actor. In June 2018, Kevin Pollack claimed that the person in question was actually the then boyfriend of director Bryan Singer.
Oh.
And if you think that's where we're going to stop that conversation tonight, you'd be wrong. But that looks like a good spot for our first break, and we will be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 274th episode, we welcome back five-time club member Peterson W. Hill to return to a conversation about social media as we revisit The Social Network. Directed by David Fincher, written by Aaron Sorkin, cinematography by Jeff Cronenweth, music by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, starring Jesse Eisenberg, Andrew Garfield, Justin Timberlake, and Armie Hammer. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. All right, Dad, we left off at best performance. Who do you have down?
Kevin Spacey. I think he deserved an Oscar for this performance because it was layered, it was intricate, it was persuasive. I think he deserved the Oscar.
I mean, I think he does a very good job. I'm certainly not of the camp, like some other people from our Cinepodcaster universe, that don't think he's actually a good actor. I actually do think he's a good actor when he has the right part. There are obviously some ones where he's really hammy and playing stuff up. Like because I needed something that wasn't 1982 or James Bond, I put on A Time to Kill the other day, and he's the prosecutor in that. And at times he's good as being extra smarmy, but he's also overplaying the entire movie. Like, that's not one where I would say he's doing a great acting job, but he's doing what that role kind of calls for in that kind of movie, which is one of those 90s courtroom dramas based on a John Grisham novel type of thing. You have to overplay the kind of antagonist character in the film.
Is there really, and isn't that kind of like redundant, a 90s courtroom drama by John Grisham?
No, there were other courtroom dramas that were based on non-John Grisham properties, such as Primal Fear and Liar Liar.
Liar Liar is not a courtroom drama.
It is too.
Okay. You sure?
Well, maybe we have to add that to, because I think it was 1997. We'll add that to the short list for 2027. Anyway, moving on. I have him as my best secondary performance because I think that he does actually do a great job in the movie. I think the way that he is very deceptive throughout and really never kind of tips his hand at any point, he's actually pretty good. The one drawback I have is this thing in the back of my mind. Oh, he's playing a disabled guy, and that's why he won his Oscar. How many different people basically playing somebody with a disability during this period, from basically Rain Man through, gosh, I'm not even sure, but there's a string of them. Whether it's Tom Hanks has AIDS or Tom Hanks is
Forrest Gump,
mentally challenged.
Yes.
And then there's several others that have been along the way. The most egregious ones being, I think, Jodie Foster playing Nell, and Sean Penn trying to do I Am Sam.
Sling Blade.
To some people, that's a really good one.
I know, but Billy Bob Thornton did a really pretty masterful job acting on that.
I've never seen the movie, so I don't know. But either way, I would direct you to the comments of Robert Downey Jr.'s character from Tropic Thunder on that one.
Yes.
Anyway, for those that know what I'm referring to,
I don't think we'll have a sequel to that anytime soon.
they're talking about doing a sequel. I don't know how you could. That's one of those that, you know, it's like Blazing Saddles. You just can't get away with some of that shit anymore.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had Christopher McQuarrie as my best performance, though. I think the writing, both from the logistical standpoint, the imagination, the inventiveness, and normally we don't put the writer as a best performance. He's usually reserved for either secondary performance or maybe even most charismatic. But this is one where Christopher McQuarrie was intimately involved with getting this project off the ground. He was going with Bryan Singer to try and help do some of the casting. He was trying to be involved in the production and the rest of this. So it's not like he wrote the script, signed it away, and then somebody made his movie. He was very much involved. And so that's why I don't feel as bad giving him the best performance. He is the other Oscar winner in this bunch. And I just had a problem maybe giving Kevin Spacey the top billing here for best performance. So we'll go with McHugh, as Tom Cruise calls him, who I think has actually written some other very good movies that I've enjoyed in the Mission Impossible movies.
My secondary is Gabriel Byrne. I liked his performance, and I thought he really carried a lot of weight in the film. I'm surprised I haven't seen him in too many other things, though, through the years.
I don't remember really seeing him in anything else.
No. So I don't know if he just, struggled with his career or if he was on Broadway and we just wouldn't have run into him or what. But
well, this is by far his most notable role. He was in Hereditary, which is a film I'm never going to see. He was also in The Man in the Iron Mask, the Leo DiCaprio movie, Miller's Crossing, which is a Coen Brothers film. I guess he was just in Ballerina, the John Wick spin-off film. Yeah, he's one of the few, especially given that he's kind of the primary build lead in this movie that hasn't really gone on to do anything else, or at least didn't have a bigger career coming in. Chazz Palminteri kind of had a career leading into this. He'd been in at least The Bronx Tale. I mentioned that he was in Analyze This, and I think he's in Analyze That as well. So he kind of had a career going, but Kevin Pollack goes on to do other things. I guess Stephen Baldwin doesn't do jack shit after this movie, but he gets to be a Baldwin brother. Okay. And I don't know. I mean, there are several people that go on to do other things. Christopher McQuarrie is doing Mission Impossible movies, and I think he wrote Top Gun Maverick, if I remember right. Kevin Spacey went on to a better career until he shot himself in the foot. Bryan Singer obviously used this as a launching pad to do the X-Men films and other things such as Bohemian Rhapsody before he ultimately got his scandals that caught up to him as well. I'm surprised though, because I also have Gabriel Byrne as my most charismatic in this. I think he's really good in this movie. I'm not sure why he's not done other things. I know at the time of filming this that they had to make special exceptions for him, that they worked around his schedule because I think he was either going through a divorce or he had some personal trouble that he was going through that he needed special scheduling or dispensation for them to try and work with him on to get him in this movie. But, whatever. It really works. I'm kind of surprised given how everybody else seemed to go on to a better career that he didn't as well.
My most charismatic is Kevin Spacey. Sorry to say that, but I always liked him as an actor and loved him in House of Cards and such. It's a tragedy that things ended up the way they were, both I can't say that I don't know how to put the.
Yeah, don't put it as a tragedy. He's not exactly a victim either.
Well, but he also didn't get convicted or settle any of his cases. So it's one of these. It's a tragedy for the potential or what are out there as victims. I don't know. The whole thing is just a sad state of affairs. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I have a very big problem with the people who try and apologize and then they come back later and try and act as if everything was against them. I don't think he's been vindicated. I just don't think that there was necessarily enough evidence or corroboration to make a credible case this many years later. There are too many stories for them not to have some level of merit to them. And for him also poorly handling what,
That's
at
true.
least at the time, was a fairly well-known secret in that he was homosexual. He handled that terribly. It didn't help the timing of everything because in addition to everything else that was going on in that moment, he was one of the first people that it seemed to engulf, and he never really seemed to get it back. But also, if the stuff was going on as far back as The Usual Suspects and we just kind of like dismissed it, I mean, they're shutting down the production to deal with some of his stuff. That's not an environment where I think he should have been accepted back either, if he was causing that kind of level of difficulty on sets. So while he is an exceptional actor, you are not guaranteed anything professionally when you act like a dickhead. So he is not a victim in my eyes. Period.
I wasn't claiming him to be a victim.
No, but he is trying to act like one now. And that, to me, rubs me the wrong way.
I think that's part of the reason why he's never been able to make a comeback. Because people aren't going to put up with it.
Well, some people might, but that's why he's going on like Piers Morgan.
Well, enough said.
Yeah. Anyway, best scene for this one, I have 5 nominees. We have the lineup, which is kind of the opening of the film where they all meet. Then we have the Emeralds heist, which is when they pop out of the vans and basically hold up the cop car. Then we have Kobayashi, which is the extended meeting of Kobayashi in the beginning. Then we have Who is Keyser Söze, which is when it's really the first time that, other than just some broad mentions of who he is, this is kind of giving some more background and information. It's when Kuyan specifically comes back in and asks verbal Kint about him, and we get more backstory to his character and kind of the myth that is Keyser Söze. And then finally, and then he was gone, which is the final twist moment of the film. Out of these, what do you think is the best scene?
And then he was gone.
Agreed. I also think that's the most indelible moment. It's the easy, low-hanging fruit for that category as well. But that the entire movie works to build up to this moment. And in fact, one of the reasons that I feel like I don't like the twist is it feels like it's undercutting the entire rest of the film. Like we've basically watched the last 2 hours for nothing.
We got to see the story he wrote, not necessarily what the film was.
Okay. It feels a little cheap.
Expected with the plot twist,
I guess, but then again, I haven't seen enough of the 90s films that are sometimes referenced to enjoy a lot of these quote unquote plot twist type of things. Okay, so if that's the best scene, what is your favorite scene?
Who is Keyser Söze? Because it really does fill in all the gaps and makes the whole. It builds a point of tension in the film that builds towards the end that makes the plot twist pay off.
I actually prefer the Kobayashi moments just because, first off, given that we have many years later a competitive eater named Kobayashi who is Japanese in nature, and for whatever reason, we have a Latin American character named Fenster and we have a Japanese named character, Kobayashi, who's played by Pete Postlethwaite. It makes no sense what some of these characters' names are, and certainly I think we're playing around quite a bit with the diversity quotient in this movie a little bit. But that being said, I think it's a very interesting scene. I'm not really sure how to completely describe it. I felt it was like where I was having the most fun in the movie, where it felt like the plot really picked up because it's the first time that he kind of drops the hints of him working for Keyser Söze and this greater backstory of everything that's been going on. Up until that point, it's been kind of just like a very basic story, but now it's got this like alternative spin on it that I think is interesting overall. So for me, that's probably the moment I felt that I was having the most fun, and that's why it's my favorite. And then no disagreement on the most indelible moment.
No disagreement at all.
Yeah, the ending is quite clearly the most indelible moment that everybody takes away from this film. All right, so that looks like a good spot for our second break. Stay tuned for our discussion on Bryan Singer and Kevin Spacey. Before we jump back into the episode, and before we get to the Stanley rubric in a minute, if you're ever curious about our master greatest movies of all time list that has ever graded movie we've ever discussed on the show, there's a link in the episode description of every episode of this show, or you can go to RonnieDuncanStudios.com/Gmode podcast and find it as the top entry in the greatest movie of all time podcast show page. That has the grades we've done so far for all 247 movies we've graded, and we continue to add more each week. Make sure to check that out as we go and follow along. Dad, do we have anyone to remember this week?
Yes, we do. Hulk Hogan, 71, American Hall of Fame professional wrestler, WWF, WCW, and actor, Suburban Commando, and Rocky III. Rose Lyman Goldenberg, 97, American playwright and screenwriter, The Burning Bed and Stone Pillow. Tom Lehrer, 97, American singer-songwriter, songs The Masochism Tango, The Old Dope Peddler, Be Prepared, It Makes a Fellow Proud to Be a Soldier. And Chuck Mangione, 84, American flugelhornist, composer, Feels So Good, and actor, King of the Hill. Grammy winner, 1977 and 79.
So, Hulk Hogan, for some people, is an exceptional hero in person. I know he has been somebody who's famous somewhat for being famous. Yes, he was the professional wrestler. I think that's probably pretty easy to say for a number of years. I, of course, have no affiliation or care for any wrestler personally. So that makes absolutely no difference to me personally. But he is in the best Rocky film. Outside of that, I don't know if I have much of a relationship with with any of the remaining people that are here. I didn't really watch King of the Hill, but even so, I mean, these are some fairly significant people in their own respects and certainly ones that should be recognized. So I'm glad we're doing so here. And so we recognize these here for their contributions with a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. All right, let's move to best lines. I'll start with the obvious one, verbal. After that, my guess is you'll never hear from him again. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. And like that, he's gone.
Dave Kuyan. Do you believe in him, verbal? Verbal. Keaton always said, don't believe in God, but I'm afraid of him. Well, I believe in God, and the only thing that scares me is Keyser Söze.
Verbal. How do you shoot the devil in the back? What if you miss?
Verbal. A man can convince anyone he's somebody else, but never himself.
Kobayashi. One cannot be betrayed if one has no people.
Interrogation cop. I could put you on Queens on the night of the hijacking. Hockney. Really? I live in Queens. Did you put that together yourself, Einstein? What? Do you get a team of monkeys working around the clock on this?
Okay, so I'm not going to do the accent on this one. Benicio's character in this is like unintelligible to me, but okay. Fenster. Man, I had a finger up my asshole tonight. Hockney, is it Friday already?
I'm out.
Okay, I have one more. Verbal. To a cop, the explanation is never that complicated. It's always simple. There's no mystery to the street, no arch criminal behind it all. If you got a dead body and you think his brother did it, you're going to find out you're right. Spoken like somebody going through the OJ trial.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move to the Stanley Rubric, the thing everybody's been clamoring for since the beginning of this episode. And Classicness is up fourth. That will be a chapter note here. So if you want to skip ahead and listen to that discussion first, you are certainly welcome to. But we're going to start with Legacy. Legacy is a measure of how this movie has held up after the initial 5 years. So roughly the year 2000 to today. What is the legacy of this movie as shared between the industry and the audience? 5 and 5 points for each of those groups for a total of 10. Dad, would you like to go first or second?
I will go second this time.
On an industry level, if it were not that the two primary figures that use this as a springboard, Bryan Singer, who went on to do all of the X-Men movies and some other various things, was eventually, I think, nominated for Best Director for Bohemian Rhapsody for some unknown reason. And obviously, Kevin Spacey didn't go on to have very difficult moments that tanked their careers. You could say easily that this springboarded several people into more prominent roles. Now, by this point, Kevin Pollack had been in a Oscar nominated or Best Picture nominated A Few Good Men. He'd been in some other movies. He was in A Grumpy Old Men. I think he was in Grumpy Old Men as the son of Walter Matthau by this point.
And Grumpier Old Men.
Well, but that was a couple of years beyond this. So it's not like he had an insignificant career, but I think he's gone on to be a fairly good character actor after being in a string of fairly recognizable films in the 90s. And while we've already mentioned that Stephen Baldwin really hasn't done anything, Benicio has gone on to a fairly nice career, kind of on the backing of this. He was not a known property when he got cast in this film. So you could say that they've had some decent things. And Christopher McQuarrie, as we mentioned before, has gone on to a nice career of his own as a director and as a screenwriter. So there are people that have gone on to more prominent things as a part of this. And despite how they currently are in the overall Hollywood landscape, I don't think you can completely ignore that Spacey and Singer went on to bigger careers because of this movie either. However, you can certainly knock down a few points from that because of how this has gone. I also think that because both of them are connected to this film, this has a little bit of a stigma to it now that people just don't want to bring up this movie or discuss it as much. And I think we're taking a little bit of a risk even doing this movie, given the conversation and everything that's surrounding it. So with that in mind, I have a 3.5 from the industry. On an audience level, I think this is a movie that a lot of cinephiles have seen, but I don't think it's as universally ubiquitous as some other 90s movies of much larger repute on their twist endings. We mentioned movies like The Sixth Sense, I think, when we did this last year, was a fairly prominent, a lot of hands went up in our office poll. This is one where I think it was 4 people had seen the movie. So despite it having some name recognition and having some fairly prominent people being Oscar nominated, having several of its lead people go on to bigger careers, that not a lot of people, in my opinion, have seen it, but I'll go just a slight bit ahead of the 2.5 that I would normally do if I was splitting hairs. I'm going to go a 3, so I have a 6.5 overall.
It takes a beating as far as the industry because it launched the careers and made it probably possible for more nefarious activities being able to be performed. by two of the cast members. I think they were able to get along or away with it longer because of the success they were having. And as far as the public, I mean, the fact is the four people that raised their hand, two of them had a question. Yeah, I think I did see that. Yeah, and Kevin Spacey, I think's in it. I mean, this has made no impression on the general public at all outside of that 5 years. It's just, this is going to be a forgotten movie. I think that this is going to be, and I can't tell you the number of times I've seen or heard people talk about this film in the last decade. It was big in its moment, and that'll be reflected on the impact and significance, but I don't give it a whole lot. So I have a 3 for the industry, and I have a 2 for the public for a 5.
So that's going to be a 5.75 average between the two of us. Okay, so that leads us into impact and significance. I went first this last category. Would you like to lead here, or do you want me to go again?
No, I'll go. I think it did have significance within the first 5 years. It was nominated 2 Oscars. It was a cultural phenomenon. Not as many people saw it in the box office, but it became huge on DVD. It was kind of like you needed to see this, the water cooler type thing. And I think there was a lot of promotion of it that time. And again, for the public, because of its popularity in the secondary market. So I'm at an 8.
I have a really hard time with this one. I think from an industry standpoint, I'll stand on my 4 here because of the careers it helped springboard, specifically Singer, specifically Kevin Spacey. You could even say to a degree, Christopher McQuarrie made his name off of this movie. I think that it certainly didn't hurt Kevin Pollack and Benicio kind of becoming a more renowned actor is because of this movie. I am loath to say that even though it won 2 Oscars, it was only on 2 nominations, which is unusual that it was even nominated twice, but then also that it won both of its nominations. That's not usually what happens with a film that's only nominated for 2 things. Usually it's like, we're going to nominate you for 2 things, but you're only going to be happy to be there. That's kind of an unusual situation. And because of its box office, I just don't know what the public appetite was for this movie. It's really hard for me to appreciate what the word of mouth was and what the cultural impact of it was in the moment that it was made. I guess I have to borrow a little bit from you because even some of the background information that I tried to research on this just didn't say much on what its life was on video and rentals and HBO and some of these other things. Like, did it have to have some of that? And did it have to have a cable run? Absolutely, because otherwise we wouldn't even be covering this movie. But
I will interject that I did look. You said there was 26 million box office. It made another 20 million off rental.
How do you know that?
Because I found it.
Okay. Where?
It was a footnote in the total box office score on Wikipedia, where it was footnoted and indicated both box office and secondary sales. 46 million.
I don't know. All right. I'm going to go with a 3 here. So I'm at a 7. So that would be a 7.5 average between the two of us. Like, I'm loath to say that this was a significant movie. Was it a potential water cooler movie that kind of had a word of mouth thing going on? Yes. But if it didn't do well at the box office, unless we're talking about like the Shawshank kind of a movie where it had a true second life and became this big cable movie within 5 years, I'm really going to have a difficult time trying to say that it had a cultural impact. anything close to what we're normally experiencing here. So
Shawshank was at a level way beyond anything else.
well, that's what I mean.
So this had some. That's why I didn't go anything higher than the 4.
I'm just gonna have a hard time putting it even that high, especially without the firsthand experience. But
I've already answered, so fine, whatever.
all right, let's move to novelty then. This is a measure of the originality and the execution of the movie. 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Is this the most original movie? No. It's somewhat of a heist film. It's told a little bit inverted through a lot of flashback and such. So it is borrowing from Rashomon and Double Indemnity and some of these crime noir kind of films, mystery novels that it's kind of based on. So I can only go with like a 3.5 because I do think that the twist at the time felt novel to a lot of people, but the overall notion of the film felt very familiar. And I think that's why the twist works. Execution wise, I think this is a fairly good film, but I don't think it's like peak level execution. I don't think all of the actors are great in this. I think most of them are pretty good, but there's an occasional one or two that just, don't hit quite the right notes. Like the unintelligible speech by Benicio for whatever frickin' reason in this movie just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And Stephen Baldwin is like the worst actor in this film by far. It's not close. He's terrible in this movie. It is no surprise to me that he has not gone on to do much of anything else. So from that standpoint, I'll give it a 4. So I have a 7.5.
Right. So I am going to go with originality at 4.5. Yes, it's a heist film and it should be down points for that. But the way it's told in flashbacks and the fact that it was done with the twist ending does give it points up as far as I'm concerned. I'm at a 4.5. It's not the linear heist film that I grew up with. It was somewhat original and fresh. So I have to give it extra points for that. As far as execution, I think there was some flaws. I think that there was opportunities to tighten the film a little bit. I'm not sure where exactly I would have done it, but Baldwin, as you indicated, was not that good. I don't know. I didn't find that the overall cut, the director's efforts, all that were solid but not great. So I'm at 4.5 for originality. I'm at a 4 for execution, so I'm at an 8.5.
Okay, so this is going to end in an 8. Now the category everybody's been waiting for, classicness. This is a measure of how well the movie or any sum of its parts have aged well or not. We usually start at a baseline of 6. Part of the reason that we started higher was for movies like this, where they have individual elements that really have aged poorly. This movie is old enough to measure for what I have deemed the timelessness aspect or score, but this is also going to come with a lot of caveats and probably a lot of nuance in both of our arguments. Normally you start, but I will give you the opportunity. If you would like me to start, I will do so. But
no, I'll start.
All right, go ahead.
I spent the first 2/3 of the movie every time Kevin Spacey came on screen thinking about all the allegations and the court trials and all the rest of that. Okay. On top of it, I'm spending.
So before we get into that, I probably should have done this on the front end. Since we're both, well, you're a full-fledged attorney and I've just been in law school for 30 some years and now officially in law school for the last year. But for the caveat, neither Bryan Singer nor Kevin Spacey has been convicted of anything. I think Bryan Singer has settled a few different allegations with some out of court sums paid to potential victims. I don't think Kevin Spacey has settled anything, nor has he had any charges specifically stick to him.
Kevin
But
Spacey actually took several charges to trial, both in New York and London, and was acquitted. He also took a civil case to trial, and I believe in Los Angeles, and where it's the burden of proof is 50-50 or 51%, preponderance of the evidence, and was found not liable. So there's an argument that could be made that he is, and I hate to use the word, but as a lawyer, you almost have to. He's been vindicated. He's not been found guilty of anything, but there's just so much baggage here. And the way it was handled and how, well, I'm gay, and, that's, and that explain. Oh my God, please. Who did you have for your PR person? If you had anybody, they needed to be drawn and quartered.
yes, because that's the type of torture that just about everybody in America definitely knows what you mean by that.
I can explain if you'd like.
It's not really necessary.
We had to study a little bit about British Admiralty law and the Bill of Rights.
Yes, because this is somehow making things easier for the average person listening to this podcast.
Yes, I know. Anyway.
Move on.
Yes. So, and then add in Singer, and you're going, almost at times felt like you needed to get up and take a shower watching the film. It dripped with, I kept thinking through the entire thing. Okay, how am I going to address this? Or how is it that I'm going to be able to say that I like the film when two of the principals were rather dastardly as to their conduct and behavior, if not necessarily criminally or civilly culpable? There's got to be something there because of the number of allegations made. I mean, it's just usually when there's smoke, there's fire. Anyway, long and short, I'm at a 3.5. I had to go down significantly because it just too much taints my viewing of this film. I don't think I'll ever watch it again because of it. I have no interest in watching it again. And I think I spent the first 15 or 20 minutes having difficulty getting into the beginning of the movie because of the baggage involved. So I think that's got to be my lowest classic number.
I think you only gave a 2 to Gone with the Wind. I'd have to look back on what you have, and maybe we'll check with our resident Scooby-Doo villain as to what your lowest totals have been. I, at one time, was keeping track of all of the individual numbers, and I'm sure I could pull up some different ones because sometimes it's a good reminder of where we've been with some of these categories, is just to revisit how low we've been on certain things. What's your record holder for lowest score? So maybe
I can understand my 2 for Gone with the Wind simply because of the longitudinal aspect of it, which is it perpetuated the noble Southern myth for generations.
Okay.
And made stereotypes and racism more prevalent.
So a film that you also gave a 3.52 in classicness is There's Something About Mary. But there are at least 2 films that you gave a lesser classicness score to. Wedding Crashers, where you added it at a 2.5, and The Room at a 1.
Okay. Actually, I'll go down to 3 on this one because I think that is appropriate. I had been wrestling with 3 to 3.5, but based on that, I think a 3 is appropriate. And the only reason it doesn't go lower is because it is a pretty good movie that holds up. If we wouldn't had 2 people who are rather tainted, I think we'd have a much better time reading this movie for classicness.
For context's sake, the only films that have a 3 or less for Classicness score are The Room at a 2.33 and The Help at a 3. Of course, our resident Scooby-Doo villain can certainly fact check us on that if we have anything else that I've missed. But that's about when I stopped keeping track of all of our individual scoring, because he said he had a master list, and I'll let his OCD trump mine for a little while because I just don't have time to keep track of all of that stuff. And he seems to enjoy taking on needless projects of organizing and endless details in a way that I don't need to. So, with that being said, I will agree with your 3. That's the overall score that I had. I am able in some cases to separate the art from the artist. This is not one of those cases. I also had trouble with separating out Kevin Spacey from some of the allegations that have been made against him, in a way that I can separate out Kevin Spacey from Glengarry Glen Ross, no problem. And even to a degree, I can do it for American Beauty. But for whatever reason, this movie, maybe it's because it's also tied with Bryan Singer, I just cannot separate him from everything else that's connected to him. Then to come find out in some of the research and the behind the scenes and the other things that there are direct ties to both of them potentially having victims on the set of this movie, I just cannot let that sit by. So I'm going to have a -2 for the onset issues. That will also involve Stephen Baldwin being a dickhead. And I'm going to have a -2 for the classicness individually for Singer and Spacey. Again, with the caveat that neither of them has technically been convicted of anything, although Singer specifically, I think, has done settlements. So just, again, for the sake of full disclosure and detail and nuance and whatever else, my opinion is separated from what the facts may or may not be. I also have a -1 for the twist being known by everyone by now. If you have not seen this movie, you probably know who Keyser Söze is before anybody lets you watch the movie. And once you know that, I disagree with Bryan Singer. Multiple times watching this movie makes it just less enjoyable, because I think that the movie cheats at the end and basically tells you that everything we've been told up to this point, you could have just basically not done with. It's null and void. So I feel a little bit cheated by that. That being said, I agree with you. It does have a level of timelessness. So I'll add back in 2 points, and that overall adds from our original 6, moves it down to a 3. So that's a 3 average between the two of us, which again, there's only one other movie that is a lower classicness score that I can find in the history of this program. And it is tied with a movie that we said was nothing but a out and out white savior movie on the same week that George Floyd was happening. So that's what this movie is dealing with classicness. All right. Rewatchability. I think this is less rewatchable after you know the ending. I think objectively, it's a fine movie, but it's got all of this other baggage with it. And people are objectively going to have their issues with it, because the minute Kevin Spacey pops up on screen, you're just going to have this clawing thing in the back of your mind unless you're just completely ignorant of everything that happened in the last 10 years. So with that being said, I'm going to give it a somewhat generous 5.
Oh, danger, Will Robinson, danger. You really want to watch this again that much?
No.
I think you've overstated it.
I said it was generous.
Oh, yeah. I'm at a 3. The only way I'll rewatch this is if somebody pleads with me to watch it again, because I have no desire to watch it. I mean, it could be somebody could come. I could be walking out of Walmart and somebody could go, "Hey, I got a free copy of The Usual Suspects. You want it?" I got it, or I got 2 of them by mistake out of the closeout bin. Nope, sorry, don't need it. Don't want it.
Well, I mean, first off, you and I don't really collect physical media in the way that many of our counterparts do. And frankly, I have enough useless junk around my apartment right now that I don't need to have all that much more shit just lying around, especially a copy of The Usual Suspects.
I know. I have a lot of books, and I'm told that I have too many by
You
a
have just
very
a lot of random junk in addition to the books. Yes, the books are plenty, and you have plenty of rooms that you could fill with books. The other stuff, all the other junk, like 10-year-old fantasy magazines that you still won't let mom throw out, those are the ones that are like, why?
they're on my bookshelf. They're research.
For what? How Arian Foster did in 2013?
I don't keep those. I keep like the Phil Steele magazines. Those are the only ones I keep because
Okay.
because I go back and we'll look and see how college players did once in a while or where they were, and and as they're coming into the NFL. So yes, I've hung on to them. It's kind of a I've kept from the first time I bought them, and I've got probably 12 or 13 years worth. That's it. It's the only ones I keep. Not a big deal.
Okay. Well, either way, it is a 4 average for rewatchability. For audience score on this one, we had an 88% for Google users and a 96% for Rotten Tomato users. I have to think that most of those votes were before some of the other stuff was happening, but whatever. So that leads to a 9.2 audience score. So to repeat the categories, we had a 5.75 for legacy, a 7.5 for impact and significance, an 8 for novelty, a 3 for classicness, a 4 for rewatchability, and a 9.2 for audience score, giving us a final total of 37.45, and currently placing it on our list between Dodgeball and Red River at 228. To be fair, it's above Coal Miner's Daughter that somebody took me to task on YouTube about, or was it TikTok? I can't remember which one. It's like a 4-month-old clip, and I apparently ruined their birthday this week by being some idiot because she's a West Virginia mama, and this was like one of her favorite movies, I guess. I don't know. I really
Ruined
should
her
stop
birthday
reading
because you didn't like a movie.
because I asked whether Sissy Spacek should have been playing her 14-year-old self. Trust me, of all the comments that I've made this season and clipped out and shared, and there's plenty of things to be mad at me about. I
Yeah.
understand. I am a very privileged white male person, and there are a lot of things to be upset at me about for what I've said on Mike this season, but that seemed pretty mild, and yet that is the one that has drawn by far the most blood on the internet. But anyway, if you want to find us or have any further commentary for us, or you want to tell me how I've ruined your birthday, you can write us at greatestaltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us at ronnieduncanstudios.com/gmodepodcast, or find us on any of our socials at gmodepodcast on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, or TikTok at the handle at gmodepodcast. Okay, remaining questions for this one. Was every part of the verbal Kint story made up? I think they went through most of the highlights. There has to be maybe some level of truth or background to what he's talking about, but obviously there's some embellishment and some character names that have been changed and some other things that are around. But do you think any of it's true?
I maybe I think some of the stories like the coffee and stuff was done specifically to see if they were catching on that he was making this shit up. We're going to just make stuff up and see if they catch on that this is made up. I think that was his ploy. So I think that most of what he did was made up.
I would say probably a good 80% because they go through a lot of the key plot points. Like Kobayashi was clearly made up, but then Pete Postlethwaite is the one picking him up at the end of the movie. So you know that like he had to have had some hand in whatever was going on. And being Keyser Söze, you would think tangentially he's somehow got a relation or a something going on with the rest of them. They were obviously all picked up for the robbery at the beginning of the movie. So there are facts that exist within the story, it's just going to be really hard to piece out exactly what facts are relevant and what aren't, and what's him embellishing or trying to fill in details in between, which I think was always the point. So that takes me to my next question. Now that there are several people who can identify him as Keyser Söze, what is the point of coming out of hiding to kill the one guy that supposedly can identify you just so that there are more people that can identify you?
I don't know. You'd have to. It didn't make a lot of sense to me either, but
I don't get his entire, especially since verbal Kint is supposed to just like take off. Why not just take off? How would they know that you survived? Just go into the wind. What's the point of going into the interrogation room or being around the police? You're just exposing yourself. I know it undermines the entire plot of this movie, but it makes no sense that he would just give himself up to the police.
it is a major plot problem.
So, okay. Any remaining questions for you?
No, not offhand.
All right. Remaining thoughts for the week.
Well, if the people watching are noticing a different look for me tonight as far as my background, I have a conference that I'm teaching in tomorrow on Social Security law, so I'm at a hotel tonight. So that's the change in circumstances. But as far as anything else, I'm looking forward to doing that tomorrow and then again the day after that. Other than that, I don't have anything much. I'm going to be celebrating my 37th wedding anniversary in a week, and so my wife and many-time collaborator, also on this show, are going to spend a night out for dinner here at the end of the week, and so 37 years. Yeah, time goes fast.
I suppose it does. Now, having mentioned that I watched A Time to Kill earlier this week, there are not a lot of 1982 and James Bond movies that I haven't watched recently. So rather than talk about any of those, because those are made for specific projects that we have coming up, our James Bond rankings series that we're going to be doing live on YouTube here by the end of the summer, and also for our inevitable appearance on the Revisionist Almanac coming up. I will save any comments I have for any of those films to those programs. However, on A Time to Kill, while the movie is enjoyable, and the final speech by Matthew McConaughey is very moving, law school ruins most courtroom dramas, particularly ethics, because god damn, there's so many unethical things going on in courtroom dramas. It's like left, right, and center. They just cannot stay away from stuff that would be normally egregious, such as the judge is just going to deny a pretrial motion for change of venue before the briefs have been written. That's unethical. It's against the judicial code. And then he's talking to the Supreme Court and says it to the defense attorney that he's basically rigged, that you can't do anything on appeal to change the venue. So you're basically locked in. Also unethical. I don't know. I'm sure there are plenty other courtroom dramas out there. 12 Angry Men can still reign supreme as like a top tier courtroom drama for me, as can Anatomy of a Murder, which I have a high degree of respect for. But I just have a feeling the more courtroom dramas I watch, the more I'm going to find flaws in them. So then when you truly have the ones that I think are like exceptional, Anatomy of a Murder, Anatomy of a Fall, A Few Good Men, 12 Angry Men, those I'm going to hold in such high esteem at that point because they actually, I don't know, get something right, that there's going to be quite a gap between the bad courtroom movies and the good ones.
Yes.
And I can only imagine it's going to get worse as I start practicing law.
Yes.
So stay tuned for our eventual discussion of My Cousin Vinny.
Although My Cousin Vinny is not that horrible.
We'll see.
No, if you really want to, once you're finished and you start practicing and you want to feel your head explode, watch 5 minutes of Suits.
I know. I have already thought about how many rules they break, like every 5 minutes in that show.
Not to mention they sleep with all their clients. Large portion of them.
I don't think so.
Okay. Maybe I just haven't watched enough. Darn.
I think for the most part, they're usually just sleeping with their coworkers, but not their clients.
That's almost as bad.
Well, it's technically not unethical per se, but it's certainly not the most moral. Anyway, I think that's a good place to stop this episode this week. Oh, okay. I think people have been listening to us drown on long enough about unethical behavior.
Let me just throw this out, okay? You've proposed that I do Dana rips all over movies and television shows that are legally based. And I just go through and go, this won't happen, this doesn't happen, and make a big joke out of it.
Yeah, you basically be what Neil deGrasse Tyson is to anything to do with space.
So let me just put it out there. Hey, listeners, if you think this is a good idea for something I could do as somewhat of a hobby as I kind of slide into more retirement time, just message the show and tell me, yes, it would be something you would be able to listen to. These would be short videos. So this would probably be on just little minis on TikTok, on YouTube,
yeah, they'd be reels or TikTok videos or YouTube.
No more than a minute or two where I just rip all over a show or point out a couple of things that took place that just don't happen or wouldn't happen. Let us know, because I'd be interested to know whether I'd have a following. Thank you.
Along that line, this is a thought I had this week, and I have not run it past you strategically so that I could pull it out at this moment. And so for anybody who has stayed with us this long, you're welcome. But I have quite a few guests asking me what's going to be happening in 2027. Mind you, we haven't even gotten to 2026 yet. We've been putting together, well, I have been putting together a short list of potential possibilities for 2027. However, I did also promise that we would go back to some theme months. Now, there's a couple of ways we could do this. We could either have it based on, let's just say January through April, which is usually the more difficult months to find anything with specific anniversaries, unless it was like at Sundance or, you know, maybe at like South by Southwest where there was a premiere and something happened and then you can kind of tie it to that. Otherwise, it's usually older films, which is why I think next year, early in the year, we have a bunch of films that are like from the 20s, 30s, and 40s that were all like, they spread those films out much more during the course of the year as opposed to Dumpuary, which is like January and February in the film calendar because all they're worried about is the Oscar films. So with that in mind, we could either have a draft where you pick two, either a specific theme, a director, an actor, actress, if you will, or some other overarching thing that we use to select the category. And then I select two. Or we could have it that it's more specific than that, where we pick between 4 actors, also actresses would be included in that, or directors, or other projects. So I'm throwing it out as a possibility. You do not have to answer right now if you think that would be a good idea or not, but I'm throwing some chum in the water to see if anybody in our listening audience would think that's a good idea as well.
Careful how much chum you throw in. We may need a bigger boat.
Fair. So I will end it on that note then. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. You're not an asshole, Mark. You're just trying so hard to be. Next week, for our 274th episode, we welcome back five-time club member Peterson W. Hill to return to a conversation about social media as we revisit The Social Network from 2010, directed by David Fincher, written by Aaron Sorkin, cinematography by Jeff Cronenweth, music by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, starring Jesse Eisenberg, Andrew Garfield, Justin Timberlake, and Armie Hammer. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have so that more can join in on our fun. You can also email the show at RonnieDuncanStudios.com/GModePodcast or at greatestalltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, or TikTok at the handle @GModePodcast. The Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Bryan Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed, edited, and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.